Let's talk right now to Paul Richards, former Labour Special Advisor, about the big vote going on in the House of Commons later today. Very good morning to you, Paul.
Hello, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thanks very much for joining us. Labour is going to whip their MPs to vote against a vote today, an amendment to a bill, the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill, going through Parliament, a very worthwhile bill in protecting children, which is being forced by Keir Starmer, the Tory leader, basically to bring in a national inquiry into the grooming and rape gangs across the country. Who's playing politics? Is Keir Starmer playing politics, or is Keir Starmer? Or no one?
I think the Tories are playing politics with this because this is obviously a bill that's going through Parliament and being scrutinised in the normal way. And then this amendment has popped up in the last 48 hours as a stunt, really, Julia, just to try and put the government on the back foot, because Keir Starmer thinks that there's an argument to be made for a national inquiry, another national inquiry into grooming gangs. But of course, it was her government that set up the very wide-ranging investigation and inquiry a few years ago, which Suella Braverman, for example, as Home Secretary, welcomed. And what this government is saying is that there will be an inquiry. Of course, there should be, but it should be led locally.
No, they haven't. No,
so that's the argument.
No, they haven't said there will be an inquiry. They've said local councils can lead inquiries. But given that, I mean, this is the thing that sparked Elon Musk's interest in this matter, on which I believe he's now tweeted something like 200 times, criticising Keir Starmer, Jess Phillips, and others. A letter from Jess Phillips, the Home Office Minister responsible for safeguarding, telling a local council, oh no, you should have a local inquiry. But if it's local officials, local councillors, local police chiefs, local social workers, and NHS chiefs who actually failed to tackle wide-ranging grooming and rape gangs and covered it up, I don't see how anyone could think that local people should be in charge of any investigation of that, which is why people are talking about a national one. But you use the word stunt. Is it a stunt to call for an inquiry into such a serious and widespread crime that has led to so much harm and even the deaths of some girls?
Well, just on the locally led issue, of course, previous local led inquiries in Telford and Rotherham did unearth truth, and they did hold people to account, and they did get to the guts on behalf of the victims, who are the most important people in all of this. So there's nothing wrong with that locally led approach, which is why the government has taken its view that it has. Is it a stunt? Well, this is an opposition that, when they were all ministers a few weeks ago, held exactly the same position as the current minister. Yep. So they've suddenly changed their minds 100% because they sent blood, egged on by Mr. Musk, who you've mentioned, who I think is not very well. I think I would worry about his well-being at the moment. The amount of time he is spending on Twitter. If that was a teenager, you'd tell him to go for a walk around the block. And so anyway, egged on by this guy, and they think this is a way to make some political capital. But you know, the chair of the original inquiry has said we don't need another inquiry. Many of the victims are saying, well, look, what we need is to get on with implementing the recommendations.
Well, absolutely. And there was a failure to implement the recommendations by the Tories. They've said, Robert Jenrick and others have said, oh, we were in the process of, it was 2 years. They had plenty of time to do it. It wasn't a priority. I completely accept the failings of the Tory government on this one. But you know as well as I do, the Lexis J inquiry wasn't into grooming gangs. It was to widespread different child abuse. They spent in 7 years only 10 days looking at the grooming gang specifically, didn't look at any of the specific towns where it had been a particular issue that had been raised, saying, oh, well, it's already been looked at elsewhere. There hasn't been a proper national inquiry. People haven't been held to account. Most of the people who basically turned a blind eye or helped cover up these crimes haven't ever been arrested, haven't faced any charges, haven't even been publicly exposed. So clearly something needs to be done. And if many of the whistleblowers and the victims are saying this is what we want, seems to me Labour, you lot bloody love an inquiry and a review. You've announced about 50 reviews in the last 6 months since you come into office. So all you do most of the time, rather than actually getting anything done. This is something that does need a proper inquiry. It does need to be statutory. It does need to have people giving evidence under oath on a national basis to get the answers to help protect children in the here and now and in the future. Why, of all topics, is this a stunt, but every other inquiry and review isn't?
Well, I would say there is going to be an inquiry. It'll be led by Oldham if they go down that route. Now, that's the right way
That's
for
not
the
a
victims to be
national
heard and for people
statutory
to be held to
inquiry.
account. We have had a national inquiry. It cost £200 million, took 7 years.
It wasn't into grooming gangs.
Endless amounts of testimony.
It wasn't into grooming gangs.
No,
I'm sorry. It wasn't into grooming gangs. It was into child abuse in care.
Gangs, though, Julia.
10 days. 7 years of evidence. 10 days.
Grooming gangs.
10 days. Even Maggie Oliver, the woman who, the former Manchester detective who blew the whistle on what happened in Rochdale, even she wasn't called to give evidence. And you're telling me we've had an inquiry into grooming gangs? Give me a break.
I think it was thorough, and I think it was wide-ranging. And it included other areas, for example, the Catholic Church.
Yes, exactly. That's what it mostly looked at.
Other children's homes, youth offending institutions.
Yes.
This is where the abuse
It wasn't about grooming gangs.
And it was included grooming gangs, and the victims' voices were heard within that, which is why they're saying, look, get on with the implementation of the recommendations now. It's all very well talking, but we need to put some laws in place so this kind of thing just does not happen again. And there were plenty of arrests. There are people currently serving custodial sentences for these heinous crimes.
Well, they've been sentenced to 10 years and then come out after 5.
Andy Burnham's doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, there aren't enough people being arrested. There aren't enough people being prosecuted. There aren't enough people who are going behind bars. They're not going for long enough, I think most people would have to say. But
I completely agree with that. I mean, that's why, again, the focus should be on the police investigations and arrests and convictions, but not necessarily yet another talking shop. You know, Oldham can lead this. They can get to the truth, and that should lead to these perpetrators being arrested and charged.
Let me ask you...
and then banged up, which is what we all want to see.
What, banged up for... I would say for life for some of these people. I don't know why people are coming out of 5 years and are roaming the streets again. And also should be deported if they're of dual nationality. You know, bye-bye, thanks for coming, but we don't need you anymore. Just finally, and this feels like a very light, silly topic when you're talking about girls being raped, for goodness sake, which is far more important. But Free Gear Keir has been at it again. According to his register of interest, he has accepted yet another set of Arsenal tickets last month, £1,000 worth of hospitality at the Emirates Stadium. I mean, when is this man who is earning well into a good six-figure salary, when is he going to just start paying for his own football tickets?
Well, I quite like the fact we've got a PM that goes and watches football.
Well,
I think
how
he's
fabulous and working
it's
class.
His great passion. I think it would be terribly sad if he stopped going because he's the Prime Minister. I think
he doesn't have to stop going, but he can pay for his own tickets. My daughter was at the Arsenal last night. She paid for her own tickets, and she's 18. If she can afford it, how come he can't?
Well, if people want to host him and he's the Prime Minister, then...
Oh, he's the Prime Minister. He should get everything for free.
I don't think there's any problem with him saying...
Does he get his Waitrose shopping for free as well?
You know, he's a proper bloke, and somebody says, do you want to come and see the Arsenal? He says, yes. No problem with that at all.
Yeah, but why are people inviting him? That's the question. What are they getting in return? That's the question people want to know.